It's important to note that climate change impacts will vary geographically, and sometimes these impacts will be contrasting or strikingly different. For example, in the southeastern United States, we anticipate more rainfall events and more flooding events as the climate warms, but in the southwestern United States, we anticipate more drought events. And that's because as the atmosphere warms, it's able to hold on to more water. And so some of that rainfall can literally just go over some parts of the country, like the desert southwest. It'll stay in the atmosphere, but then when it does fall, there will be more water in those clouds, and that water will fall down and cause flooding events. And so this leads to a dichotomy where we see more flooding, and also more droughts. And sometimes that causes confusion, and people say, scientists don't know what they're talking about, but there is a reason. And this is the reason. The warmer atmosphere holds on to more water. In these images here, we see on the left is Mississippi River flooding. And then on the right, you can see Lake Mead, which is a lake, a dammed lake in the Colorado River system. And you can see that the paler colored rocks are rocks that are typically underwater. And so in this picture, Lake Mead is only at 50% of its the way up to the high water line due to drought. So we said one aspect of climate change is more flooding events. That's because there will be more rainfall events that are more intense, and that leads to floods. So just some examples. The Midwestern United States experienced a 500-year flood. So that's a flood that's so big that it typically only takes place every 500 years. And these events happened within 14 years of one another in 1994 and then again in 2008. Additionally, we saw that Nashville, Tennessee received what was called a 1,000-year flood event just in 2010. And then in 2019 and then again in 2020, the same places along the Mississippi River system. So that's this line of pink dots that goes between Arkansas and Tennessee and Mississippi and Louisiana. That's all that Mississippi drainage basin. It received flooding 2 years in a row, significant flooding. And then there's also these pink and red dots in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. Those areas also experienced major flooding 2 years in a row. So out in the southwestern United States and in other traditionally desert areas across the world, we see less rainfall in these areas. And again, that's because of the fact that the atmosphere is holding on to more water, so it's not raining on these areas as much. As one example, we'll look at the California system. So in California, 25 plus million people depend on snowmelt as their source of water. The snowmelt is coming out of the Sierra Nevada mountains and also the southern Cascade ranges. And less snowfall is falling on these mountain ranges, which means there's less snowmelt to supply water for California. And in 2014 to 15, you'll see in the picture on the right on the screen, we see that the snowpack was only 6% of its quote normal values, and that's the traditional average value or amount of snowpack. And so this leads to drought in these areas because there's not that moisture coming throughout the year to supply water to people, but also to natural ecosystems in the area.